When you think of Italian food, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Pizza. How about pasta or gelato? Well, today we'll be taking a look at a painting that might just have been the reason why someone was made an offer they could unrefuse. In fact, he specialized in collecting works from the Sicilian Mafia. But don't worry. This isn't one of those fake paintings that you see sometimes, where people put a little twisty mustache above the mouth of the Mona Lisa. After all, these pieces weren't just any old paintings. They were unique items that told the stories of some of the most feared men in the world. It was like getting a glimpse into the minds of criminals, who usually kept their thoughts to themselves. These were genuine articles painted by Mafia members while they were locked up. The piece simply showed a boat floating along the coast of Sicily. In fact, some say the painting was a way of showing the next target of the Mafia. Of course, that's just a theory. And to understand it, we need to take a closer look at the canvas itself. After all, boats are often used as a metaphor for sailing through life. And what better way to sail than with a crew of loyal friends by your side? The crew in this case would be the people inside the boat, with the possible exception of the captain, who some say could represent the boss of the Mafia. So if the boat is moving towards the right, that means it's heading straight for the coast. But what does that mean? Well, it could mean that the Mafia is on its way to attack someone living along that coastline. There was nothing violent, nothing disturbing, nothing that would make anyone think twice about hanging it in their home. Do they appear to be armed? Some reports say yes, claiming that the figures in the boat have guns hidden under their clothes. Well, it turns out that it has happened before. Back in 2011, an anonymous bidder at an auction in New York paid a whopping $37,000 for a drawing of the Virgin Mary by another imprisoned Mafia member named Bernardo Provenzano. Until then, though, it remains an enigma, a puzzle with pieces that may never fit together. If that's true, it would make sense that they're heading for the coast. We appreciate your support and hope that you continue to watch our videos. Plus, it's not like American mobsters aren't into art. In fact, there's a famous story about how John Gotti, powerful member of the Gambino crime family, had a portrait of himself painted in the style of The Last Supper. After all, a hit squad wouldn't want to draw any unnecessary attention to itself before making a move. So if you didn't have enough money for a straight-up purchase, there was always the option of renting one. All you had to do was pay a weekly fee, and then you could enjoy the fruits of a murderer's labor. You know, the places where they operate and collect their protection money. But there's one other detail that really makes this theory stand out. Well, fortunately for him, it doesn't seem like it. As far as we know, he's still alive and well, probably hanging onto that painting like it's a life raft in the middle of a storm. You see, boats typically have two sides, the port side, which is the left side as you look at the painting, and the starboard, which is the right side. Maybe it was just a peaceful scene of a boat floating along the coast, nothing more, nothing less. Or maybe it was a cryptic message from the Mafia, a warning that went unheard. Either way, the mystery only adds to the intrigue of this strange and fascinating world where art and organized crime collide. And if you look closely, you'll notice that the port side of the boat is much lower than the starboard. This means that the boat is at an angle which suggests that it's moving towards the right. Take a close look at the boat again. Do you notice anything unusual about it? You'll notice that there are two main elements to it, the boat and the coastline. At first glance, they might seem pretty unremarkable, but with a little imagination, you can start to see how they could be interpreted as something more. It all started with a well-known art collector named Joseph A. Moretti. He had a peculiar taste in art. Now, even though they were done by mobsters, these paintings weren't always of scenes of violence or crime. Sometimes they had subjects like religious figures or landscapes. But regardless of what the subject was, each piece had a price tag that was as high as the Tower of Pisa. Now, you might be asking yourself, who would buy expensive paintings from prison inmates? Well, it turns out that quite a few people did. It turns out that Mr. Moretti had recently rented out a painting from a former member of the Sicilian Mafia named Matteo Messina Denaro. Now, the interesting thing about this particular artist is that he had only just been released from prison after serving 26 years of a life sentence. The only problem was, not everyone could afford these masterpieces. Apparently he got his start in the art world by making portraits of fellow inmates. Then when he was transferred to a prison that had more lenient rules, he was allowed to paint on larger canvases and even use oil paints. This gave him the chance to improve his craft and develop his style, which eventually caught the attention of art collectors, who were willing to pay top dollar for his work. But now you might be wondering, what does all of this have to do with our painting? So once he was back on the streets, he decided to pursue his passion for painting, which just so happened to be really good. But what was the painting that Mr. Moretti had rented actually supposed to represent? Well, it wasn't anything too crazy. But unbeknownst to Mr. Moretti, this painting had a dark secret. Turned out that the tranquil scene was hiding something much more sinister. Now let's take a closer look at the painting. For example, some say that the boat represents the Mafia. As for the coastline, that could be seen as the territory controlled by the Mafia. If you said yes, congratulations, you're a lot sharper than most people. And guess what? The right side of the painting happens to be the coastline. But wait, there's more. Look closely at the people in the boat. But hold on a second. Could it be possible that a painting from an Italian mobster would be sent to a collector in America? Now, this particular case doesn't involve a target being shown in a painting, but it does show that artwork from Italian mobsters can end up in America. But what happened to Mr. Moretti? Did he become the victim of a Mafia hit because he hung a painting of a boat on his wall? Of course, we may never know for sure what the painting really meant. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll find out the truth behind the painting and the target it may have shown. What do you think? Is there any truth to the story of the painting that showed the next target? Let us know in the comments below.